Greeting, greetings, everyone. We thank you all for joining us on this afternoon. Those out in cyberspace who've joining us virtually, whether you're on Zoom, Facebook, or at mtwelcome.org or YouTube, we thank you. We thank you for joining us for this very important conversation that will be taking place on this afternoon. We're truly excited because oftentimes what we have come to realize is those who give care, oftentimes, most of the time, need care themselves as well. Because they pour out so much, oftentimes things aren't poured back into them. And so, and I know some people are thinking right now that this is just about somebody who may be taking care of aging parents, or someone who's helping take care of someone who is ill. But really, this is more about anybody that gives care to anyone else, whether you are a parent, whether you're taking care of your aging parents, or whether you're taking care of an ill loved one, or you're taking care of all of the business of the family. This particular program is about you. It is about you. And so what we want you to do, if you are online, if you are participating in this virtually, and particularly Facebook and on Facebook, we want you to share. If you're on YouTube, we want you to hit like. And really call somebody, text somebody, tell them to tune in so that they can receive the much needed information. I truly believe that you will be blessed by being here, by being in the building, or by being online with us on this afternoon. So we're not going to belabor the point. We're not going to hold you. We want to get into the conversation. And so what I want to do is I want to introduce our speakers for today. First to my left, the wonderful woman in the royal blue, the royal woman, Coach BJ, Miss Miss James, and so she is with us on today, and she has a wealth of information just around, just really helping us to do better and be better with regard to reaching our goals, reaching some of the things that we want to do, and helping individuals move through life more efficiently and more effectively. This wonderful young lady who is to my right is Miss Lauren Williams, and so we are truly excited about her. She is a counselor, certified counselor, and she counsels everyone from adolescents to adults. And I think her focus is young adults. Is it? Adults. Her focus is adults. And so we're super excited about her. And they'll tell you a little bit more about their background once. And the person that I'm hiding, that is directly behind me, is Dr. Lakiba Williams Cook, and she's a PhD with a focus on adult education and also counseling. And so we're just super excited, and so we're going to turn the floor over to them. But please, man, if you don't do anything else, share this right now. Text somebody. Tell them they either need to get down to 581 Parker Avenue, or they need to tune in at mtwelcome.org, or share it on your Facebook or your YouTube, because everybody needs self-care, and this is about self-care for the caregiver. Thank you. And let's give them a hand.
Thank you all for being here. We first want to thank Reverend Robinson for the opportunity to get to share with you taking care of yourself, self-care for caregivers. It is his heart as our pastor to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves And so I just, Rev, want to thank you on behalf of my team for the opportunity. Want to thank Tamika for being behind the scenes with the media, pulling up the PowerPoint, purchasing those books that are in that are outside in the foyer. As you come in, we've got a little quiz that we want you to come get. And if you don't have it in your hand, it's right up here at the front in this pew right here in the front. And so we want you guys to have the opportunity to take a little quiz just to find out where you are as it relates to stress. As Reverend Robinson said, we are Fresh Hope Counseling Center. This is a part of our team, not the entire team, but a part of our team. And it is a privilege for us to share with you today. We are just a group of people that want to see, we just want to see us thriving. We want us to do more than survive. Can I get an amen to that? Because we're tired of that, aren't we? Yeah. And so just know, as we've prepared, we've had you in our hearts and in our minds. We trust and believe that God's going to lead us and guide us. And if it's okay with you all, I just want to offer a word of prayer before we get started. Father God, we thank you so very much for the opportunity that we have together today to share with your people whom you love so much. God, give us the words to say. You know we've prepared, but give us the words to say and take us in the direction that we need to go in to feed your people and to encourage your people. Now, Lord, we just thank you for every participant. You know what they need, God. You know their needs that they have spoken and the ones that are unspoken. God, we just pray that you would go to each home represented, whether they're in the building or online, and just rest, rule, and abide, God, that your peace would just tarry, Lord, and that the strength that is needed would be given today, tomorrow, and the days to come. We thank you in advance for what you're going to do. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so you have with you a quiz that we found that was created by AARP, and hopefully you've gotten an opportunity to take it. But what we wanted to do was just to give you kind of a snapshot of where you are. And for those that are online, I'm going to take the opportunity to read the quiz out loud, okay? We're looking at, in caring for a loved one, how often do you have the following experiences? And y'all, I read the list and my heart just was, I was like, man, this is so real, isn't it? Have you felt resentful, feeling trapped? Talking about caregiver quiz. Being tired, not getting enough sleep. Feeling weary. Feeling troubled. Feeling helpless, poor appetite, or overeating. That can go either way, can't it? Being physically exhausted, feeling disillusioned, feeling useless, being utterly drained of feeling. That's just numb. That's plain old numb. Feeling burned out. Being unhappy, feeling anxious, feeling rejected. Now, each one of these, you see there's a tally score up front. If your answer to that is never to those questions, well, that's a 1. That's a score of 1. If once or twice, 2. Rarely 3, sometimes 4, often 5, usually 6, and 7 always. And if your score, they say, is under 60, you're in good shape, which lets us know that these are normal feelings when you're a caregiver. And when we were putting the talk together, I so appreciate Reverend Robinson's introduction, not the part about us, because we just want to serve you all. But what I appreciated was the fact that if you are a parent, if you are a grandparent and you care for your grandchildren, if you're a caregiver for anybody, if you're a caregiver for someone with an illness, then these are real, normal feelings to have. And we wanted to create a space to offer you, just a place to unpack that bag and to know that it's okay. Now, if your score is over 60, then we want you to know that as a disclaimer, we're not offering counseling services to you today. If in fact your score is high, you may want to schedule a one-on-one appointment with a counselor to kind of unpack the things that you're feeling in depth. But we certainly, as for educational purposes, are going to be offering you some tools to put in your toolbox. Is that okay? Very good. They say if your score is under 60, you're in good shape. If your total score is 60 or above, the stress of taking care of a parent or being a caregiver is beginning to take its toll on you. If it's 90 or above, then you are living with caregiver burnout. And you are not alone. Yeah, you are not alone. You see the mic, there's a mic stand here. As we offer what we have to share with you today, we want this to be an interactive experience for you. And so if you have something that's on your heart that you want to share, we want you to get up and feel free to go up to the mic and share it, because we all know that what we share with one another it isn't just for us, it encourages us as a people. And so we want to, just to let you know, we're coming with the knowledge that we've gathered, but we also know that there's a wealth of knowledge in the room. Anybody identify with any of these experiences, any of these feelings? Can you give us a show of hands if you identify with any of them? Yeah, yeah. Understandably so. The stress and the strain of being a caregiver is heavy. And one thing we want to say is the list was unpleasant, but as people of faith, we have hope. We have hope. And so we are not without hope as we're in the roles that we find ourselves in. We know that God's going to give us what we need, and as a body of believers, we encourage each other as well. But we just want to let you know, as Fresh Hope Counseling Center, we come with some fresh hope today. We want you to know that there's hope, that when you're tired and when you're weary and nobody knows. I know you've probably said it. I know I have as a caregiver. When nobody knows but God. Nobody but God. That's okay. We just want to normalize some of those experiences today and let you know, if you find yourself outside of that window of tolerance, some of the things that you can do to take care of yourself. You guys want to add anything to the assessment? Any thoughts about that? No? Okay. All right.
Yeah, you did a good job.
Oh, all right. Well, very good. Tamika, we're ready for the PowerPoint. We did, for the sake of those of us that are visual learners, Coach BJ put together a PowerPoint for us. So we're going to go into that. Go ahead and go to the next slide.
Well, I'll say something. I'm thankful for Pastor Robinson for letting us talk about this, because we're having a conversation that many people in our community, we don't really talk about things like this. It's a really difficult conversation to have. So I'm thankful for everybody who tuned in and who's here that's open. I think it just shows the strength and the openness of our church and our community, and the people who are willing to learn and to talk about these conversations, and be an example for the next generation, because we all will have to be caregivers at some point in some form or fashion. So just being open to have this conversation about this topic, I think, shows tremendous strength in our community. So that's exciting to see.
Well said, well said. God is so gracious as you think about the lifespan. Children, we generally care for them from 0 to 18. And I say generally. I got some chuckles about that. But generally, the bulk of what we do is during that time. And then there's a lull. And then after that, we generally care for our parents. Generally, there are many exceptions to that, even in the room. But generally, that's the way it works. So there's a lull in the middle. It's called empty nest. Maybe y'all had that. Yeah. and you get a little bit of a, why do you say, God in the providence of God, in the wisdom of God, would know ahead of time just to give that little bit of a space. Everybody's circumstance and situation doesn't fall under that category, but that's general. Just speaking generally of lifespan development, that's kind of how it goes. And so there's that time where we're pouring into and giving, and then you get a little bit of a break and get to move around a little bit and have your midlife crisis or whatever, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And then life circles back around, and then there's caregiving again in some fashion. And so today we want to talk about that. But before we do that, we wanted to break the ice because this is kind of a tight situation to talk about. So from our audience, we just want to ask you a couple of questions. What's a fun card game that you play? Anybody want to offer from your seat? You don't even have to get up to the mic if you don't want to. You can just offer from a fun card game. Anybody? Uno, yes, yes, yeah. How about anybody read magazines in here? A magazine you like to read? Anybody? You like books? What name a book that you're reading right now? Anything? Ah, nice. Okay. Yeah. Now, James Patterson, if I'm correct, mystery. Yeah, I like him too. Yeah. Anybody else want to offer a magazine or a book that you're reading? Anybody? When you can find time while you're not caregiving, right? When you have those little breaks. Anybody? You got something? Southern Living. Yeah. Yeah, good. Thank you for offering that. Essence, yeah, that's one of my favorite. Did you know that you can get an online account with your public library and check those magazines out online? You can, yeah. I didn't even know we were going to be offering that today. But you don't even have to purchase these items. You can just go online and get a Libby account. That's that app that you can have on your phone and read. That's what I do with the Essence magazine and the other magazines that free of charge. Yes. And yes, absolutely. All types of books and books for little ones. What's the season you most enjoy? Anybody?
Fall.
Fall? Summer. All right. Spring and fall. Yeah. What you say, Coach BJ? Summer. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's good. Anybody want to share something you like about your hometown? What's your hometown and what do you like about it? I was born in Chicago. I grew up in Gulfport, Mississippi. What I like about Gulfport, Mississippi is the ocean is right there. So you got the beach. And it's just something about the water for me. I'm a water scientist, just something about the water. And not to make light of the seafood, too. So that comes with that. So anybody want to talk about your hometown and what you like about your hometown? Philly. Good music from Philly. But listen, good music from Philly. Oh, yeah, Philly cheesesteak, yeah. And good old music, just good. Man, yeah, good music. All right, let's go. Let's get into it, ladies. Y'all ready? Let's get into it. So first we know we have to take care of ourselves. When we get on an airplane and they're going through the security checks, what's the first thing they tell y'all? That's right. Put your mask on first. And that's what we want to encourage you to do today. There's a reason they do that. Because we have to take care of ourselves. The scripture tells us, love your neighbor as yourself. And there's an interesting word right in the middle of as. So that means you need to be doing that, before you can healthily do that for anybody else. When we stop and we recognize that taking care of ourselves is important, it's going to change things. It's going to change things because oftentimes we feel like we have to do it by ourselves. We don't have any resources. We don't want to bother other people. Anybody feel like that sometimes? Yeah, don't want to bother other people. And yet, we, as a community, if we take that mindset, we can do these things together. You know, it's something about calling somebody and saying, hey, can you come and sit with mama for 15 minutes while I go outside and take a quick walk? We're able to do it today. Let us not get discouraged and not call again. We do that, don't we? Maybe we can say, well, when can you do it if you're not able to do it today? Right? Sometimes that load gets so heavy and we don't reach out because we feel like we're going to be rejected. We feel like somebody else is going to be a bother to someone else. But what we're going to be talking about today is, it's not. It's just the busyness of life. If we could just get those things scheduled and get that support around us, we would fare better. Some of the effects of caregiving on health and well-being. If you are a caregiver for somebody, and you're caring for somebody between the ages of 66 and 96, and you're experiencing mental and emotional strain, you are at risk of dying. That risk is higher than 63% of other people. Jarring, isn't it? Why do you suppose that is? Yeah. Maybe missing your own doctor's appointments or not scheduling those doctor's appointments. When COVID hit and we all stopped going to the doctor and we all stopped having those checkups, those preventative health care checkups, that at that point was understandable. Then we got to a point where we could go back to the doctor's office. But y'all, it took so long, didn't it? Because they'd only have a certain amount of people in the office, and the wait got so long. And as a caregiver, the scheduling of everything is so difficult. But those are the times I had started to say to my clients, all of those yearly appointments that you miss, go ahead and schedule those, because that's your self-care. Maybe you're sitting here now and a dental appointment has been pushed and pushed and pushed. Go ahead on and schedule that for yourself, because that's self-care is the best care. Anybody want to say something about that?
Something just actually hit my spirit when you just mentioned that go ahead and get it scheduled, because and most of the old folks will say, you know, if you don't sit yourself down, God will find a way to sit you down. So that dental appointment that you're missing and you are putting off, when that toothache hits you, you have no choice. You are running then at that point. But preventive maintenance, do it before it gets that bad. And that's the same with your health, stress, and everything else. You don't want to be in a hospital. You don't want to be laid out because you have not taken the time to take care of yourself. So once again, if you're not getting the messages and you're avoiding and you're procrastinating, then the message is going to be in the pain, where you're going to have the sense of urgency, where you're going to have to do it, where you're not going to have a choice. And, you know, none of us want to get to the point where we just don't have a choice to do that. So I thought about that.
Yeah, that is because the older we get, the more maintenance we have to do. And I'm not just talking about older caregivers. I'm talking about baby boomers too. We all need to make sure that we're seeing about ourselves, because we're living longer. We're caregivers for a longer amount of time. And the stress and the strain of that can weigh on us heavy. The risks of caregiving, but there's also a risk, aside from the health, of increased depression. The loneliness, when people are moving around and traveling and going to the senior citizen meetings, and my mama liked to go to bingo. I'm just saying that's what she liked to do. She'll tell y'all too if she was here. That's her thing. But when you're caregiving, like my mom is, she's caring for my nephew. Okay, she's got a preteen she's caring for. She can't move around like her peers and do some of the things that maybe some of the folks her age are able to do. And not speaking to her specifically, but generally speaking, if we're not interacting with our age group, that's something Pastor talked about on Sunday, and having that social interaction and sharing those experiences, loneliness can tend to set in. And I'm not even talking about clinical depression. I'm talking about just a sadness, overwhelmed, and feeling of being disconnected. Any of you experience that without going to the mic? Anybody want to speak to that? Because you don't have to. Anybody know what it's like to just feel like everybody's life is going on? And it kind of feels like yours is on. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I'll speak to it. Most people know I have a 2-year-old daughter, Emery, if you haven't seen her running around. You will. None of my peers have children. And as we all know, women are waiting later on in life to have kids. And so when I look around and it's just me and my daughter, I start to feel a bit isolated. And I just, as you stated, couldn't move around the way I used to, right? All of my friends, let's go to brunch, let's go, let's go. Well, I don't have a babysitter, and I don't want to take my daughter to get mimosas, so I'm probably just going to stay at home and do the mom thing, right? But it became really important. My therapist actually told me it's important for me to have community with, branch out and meet other women around my age group who have children. That doesn't mean that I can't still be close with my friends, but I had to take the steps to find other women with little ones so that we could, oh, you can't go with me neither. Well, maybe we can all get together and sit and talk and, because we understand each other. So community is a really big antidote for isolation, feelings of loneliness. And we have that in here right now. We're all here because we connect for some reason. So want to take that opportunity to share that and also just encourage us as a community to just look at who's here and lean on each other because we all are going through similar situations with being caregivers. So, yes.
Go ahead.
Excuse me, we can't hear online.
I got it.
Thank you. What I was saying is, I'm taking care of my 2 grandchildren, ages 8 and 10. I used to do daycare for 29 years, and I thought once I stopped doing that, before I got my grandchildren, that would be over. I would have an outlet to do more things because I used to love to travel, my husband and I, which is disabled to a certain degree, but he still do a lot of things. But to make a long story short, I take care of them, and I find myself overwhelmed with them for as trying to keep them grounded, for as school is concerned, for as my life is concerned, for as my husband's life is concerned. And I just feel like that I don't have enough time for myself. You know, taking care of them, making sure they're doing what they need to do or whatever. So I do understand there is no outlet for me. I'm not a sociable person for as a lot of friends and stuff like that. I have people here that I talk to at church, Jackie mainly, the Burdens mainly. But other than that, I just feel like that's what my time is being burned out, because there's not enough hours for me to do, what I need. And then after retiring from doing daycare, I felt like I love children. I started working for the Cobb County School System. So I went right back into kids again, but I love it. And I feel like going to work is my outlet for is dealing with everyday life.
So I appreciate you sharing that. It gives a sense of I'm doing something and making a difference. I'm doing something outside of the house. it's making me feel fulfilled. And you know, as we reflect on it, everybody's situation is going to be different. Those hours that we do have, though, what we're going to be talking about is how can you take that time, maybe an extra little 15 minutes, and maybe the kids are coming in there and you feel like you can't even go to the bathroom by yourself, you know, but you give me 15 minutes, and you would be amazed. And then they start to, oh, that's her 15 minutes. I can't mess with her 15. You know what I'm talking about? You don't mess with her 15 minutes, because that's just what she gonna need to be okay when she come out of that bathroom. And over time, I think that develops a sense of a steady, you know, everybody's, like you said, taking into account what everybody needs. And then we find ourselves being in a, maybe just feeling a little bit better over time. It's just going to take time. Cut that mic off. When anybody wants to speak, okay, when anybody wants to speak, let's just pass that around. Anybody else want to share anything related to that? Thank you for sharing that. Come on, Rev. Rev says she got something.
And I like just the realistic aspect of that, because even with our clients, a lot of times we can't just say, yeah, take a spa day or go on a vacation. That's not realistic, right? And so throughout this seminar and this talk, we'll be talking about those minute moments that you can recall in your day. Like, I may have 15 minutes, I may have 5 minutes, I may have a half an hour. And we'll talk about capitalizing on those small times where you might just sit on the couch, or for me, scroll, that aren't really benefiting me or feeding me, and maybe swapping that out with some other options that we'll talk about, that will feed me and fuel me to keep doing the things that I need to be doing.
I really started not to say anything, but I thought maybe someone is feeling what I felt. My mother passed a year ago, but when she took ill, it was a no-brainer. I had to stop life completely, leave another state, and come back home to see about my mother. That was not a hard choice to make. It just was not. However, what I found in the 23 years and giving up a career that was quite lucrative and quite rewarding, and I wouldn't say I gave it up, I just put it on hold. I did not give it up. I just put things on hold. And I don't regret one moment of that, but in the process, when I look at your list, I felt all of those things. And it wasn't against mommy, it was the circumstances. And we lived for 23 years in a constant state of crisis. There was always one crisis after another, several at one time, to try to manage that. And the guilt that comes from trying to manage a crisis for someone who had given you a life that was indescribably beautiful and wonderful, and wanting to give her in these times a portion even of what she had given me. But because we were in crisis, so many things were impacted, and priorities became, she was the number one priority, period. I think sometimes too, when we talk about taking the 15 minutes or getting the physical care with your scheduling appointments, for some who've had to put life completely on hold, you leave insurances behind. You leave income behind. And so some of those things just become, in a state like Georgia that does not care for its citizens, you have no outlets, or you have no means of being able to do those things for yourself, even if you want to. And then I'm going to say something I thought I would never share except for with dear friends. You become ashamed sometimes because you're an intelligent person, an educated person, an exposed person. You know some things that you should do, but because they are priorities and because of affordability, you don't do those things. And then it becomes a mindset every now and then, maybe for someone, that it's better if I don't know. Because if I did know that I had breast cancer, what can I do about it? And since I need to take care of her, I'd rather use my spirit and time and energy that I might have toward her versus trying to scramble to make sure that I'm okay, that my energies get dissipated, my emotional and spiritual life gets overly complicated, and then she suffers. So for me, the option was to give it all to the one who had given me life at a sacrifice that was great. But I don't consider it emotionally or spiritually sacrificial, but in reality, it is sacrificial because there are things that you do need to. And I think that balancing act, sometimes if people aren't in that position, they can tell you a lot of things, but they don't know. And counseling isn't always an option because, once again, affordability. And people will tell you in the church, just Jesus, just pray, just this. If you already have faith, and you already know, we know that. But Jesus and the Lord does not, yes, God reaches God's hand into the life of us, and God sustains us, because God knows God kept me. I don't know how. It could only be God. However, God does not pick up the spoon and cook. God does not write the check for the bill that has to be paid. God provides avenues for these things, but people callously sometimes, and with the best of intentions, I really found people had the best of intentions, offer advice in these ways, but they weren't actually it wasn't actually practical advice. And I found that people weren't really wanting to share the burden with you at all. So I found that it was best, and maybe perhaps not best, that it was best to just leave people completely out. And I thought, I'll do it myself. And even when people would say, well, get someone to sit with your mom, I had to be mindful of her personality. Everybody can't just sit with that person. And when our parents are of a certain age, they come with a certain pride. And so they're mindful of things that they can't do in the same ways, or bodily functions that require a different kind of sensitive care. And I found sometimes in paid and professional caregivers, they sometimes get a detachment because they do it so much that the person becomes a job and the humanity is missing because they're overwhelmed in these positions.
And see, as you share your experience, what we hope to do today is to bring to bear maybe some things that maybe in our own experiences we don't consider. Because there are some things, like when we think about the Affordability Health Care Act, when we think about counselors that give sliding scale fees, y'all know them. Sometimes we've seen people for $20 in my practice. So everybody's not without resources. What we want to do today is to encourage you. When you find that you're at a place where you've reached your end, it's okay to reach out for help. You just may find somebody that understands enough to get you to where you need to go. You are not alone. Rev, I appreciate the candor with which you shared what you shared. And my heart celebrates that God gave you the grace to walk that out. Because it takes that to be a caregiver for each of you. Everybody's experience is different. Everybody's is. When I was listening to Lauren and she was saying, well, my therapist told me, and I was just sitting here just so tickled that the therapist sees a therapist. Isn't that all right? You know, it's just one thing to tell y'all something, but it's another thing for us to sit up here and be doing it ourselves, because I see my own therapist as well. And
another big point is just our other mandate was just to tell you all that you are worth it.
yeah.
Because in the midst of sadness, clinically, depression, you start to feel isolated. You start to, because of your circumstances, you don't see a way out. And you start to neglect yourself and those sorts of things because it seems like the only option in reality. And so sometimes it's important for other people to come in and just say, you are worthy of those sorts of things, even when you can't hear it or see it and no one else is reminding you of it. It takes that. I know it took that for me. And I know other ladies up here can attest to it. It takes somebody just saying, and I may not know you very well, but it's part of our mandate to just say that you are worth it, even if you have to sacrifice, even if people are mad at you, even if people are upset with you, you're worth it. And you can blame that on us when somebody has something to say about it. But it's like the empty cup thing, right? Yeah. If your cup is empty, then you have no choice, kind of like Coach B, you're running. You're panicking. Some of that kind of stuff is preventative, even those little appointments, sometimes even going to sacrifice, even for me, I know my pride, right? I don't want to ask everybody to help me. I can do it. But the reality is I can't. And if I keep pouring myself out, then I'm not gonna be able to even show up for my child, show up for my loved one, show up for the people that I care for. So I have to sometimes sacrifice the way that I feel, right? To get that 1 hour of help, or even if the person might have to squeeze me in, then I can go and do what I need to do, hurry back to show up for whoever I'm taking care of in that small little bit of time. Just wanted to piggyback off of what you both have said.
Rev, what you mentioned, though, the crisis extended is traumatic. And if you all hang in there, at the end, we're going to do a meditation that's going to address that. How do you establish safety within yourself when you feel like you've been pulled here and there and everywhere, and you just don't feel like yourself? How do you come back to what we say to our clients, center? How do you get back to that place? If you're hanging around to the end, we're going to do a meditation that's going to help us all do that, because we're sitting here and we have to do the same thing. So just hang in there with us. I think that's going to be a blessing to you, Rev, as well, to all of us. Tamika, can you bring the PowerPoint up? Coach BJ, you ready? All right, very good.
And it just really is a good flow through to address what I'm going to talk about. And that's really identifying your personal barriers, right? What is standing in the way? And I always like to define what that means. And personal barriers in life is the impediments that, you desire to grow personally, professionally, spiritually, socially, all of these variables that you wish to do. And even with your barriers, it could be psychological, it can be emotional, whatever it could be, whatever is standing in the way of you progressing and doing the things that you need to do for yourself. And I like to also point out, what is the barrier starts? The barrier starts in your mind, right? It's your mindset, and it's based on your perspectives. It's based on your beliefs and your attitudes, everything that you were taught, everything that was planted into you. So a lot of those beliefs, attitudes, and perspectives you have is centered around how you take care of yourself, right? And take care of the ones that you love, right? It all starts there in the mind. And so you can get in the way of yourself. And one of the things that people often say is taking care of other people is easy. You know why? Because you can see the value in what you do. You can see them getting better. You can see, you feel even prideful. I'm doing a great job for my mom or my spouse or my child or whoever you're taking care of. So there's a sense of pride and happiness you feel. But the unfortunate part of that is that you can't translate that into yourself. You can't translate that same easiness of self-care and taking care of yourself as you can with the person that you're taking care of, right? That's one point. And another point I wanted to bring out is, I'll take care of myself later. That's another perspective of the I'll take care of myself later. That's another form of procrastination. So you translate that same mindset in saying that it's the same with laundry, not wanting to come home and take care of the kids, and I'll do the laundry tomorrow. What else do we procrastinate and put off, right? Because it's heavy, right? And so when you think about I'll take care of myself later, you can't do that when you're taking care of someone else, because I'm gonna go back to the point that she just made, is that you can't pour from an empty cup. right? And I like to tell a lot of my clients, because I do an aspect of spiritual, coaching with my clients, is that, God gives you a full cup every day. So you are supposed to pour into others from the overflow, not from your cup, right? Your cup should never be empty. Your cup should always stay full. So once the overflow stops, that means you stop.
How do you do that? How do you keep the cup full? How does that, how mindful of that?
Boundaries. You have to be able to be mindful to set those boundaries, because in a sense of self, you know when you're getting empty, because then the stress starts, the headaches start, the low energy start, all the things we're talking about doing the reverse of getting energy, staying motivated, you begin to retreat in. So you begin to know when I'm going to say everything is winding down, because, okay, I'm getting stressed. Depression, what she talks about, you begin to get those symptoms, and you know yourself, whether you are aware of it or not. You begin to, once you tap into that awareness, you begin to feel the strains, and that's how you know that you're now, okay, now I'm pouring out too much, right? Because what happens is, when we get very empty, then that's when we want to go to God and be like, God, just help me, I just don't feel good. But then God says, but then now you allow somebody to tap into your reserve. That's your resource. So whenever you feel pulled, to Dr. Lakeba's point, whenever you feel pulled, whenever you feel the strain or those symptoms of getting weary, I'll say, that's when you know, okay, I have to cut it off, because that's my reserve that I have to save that for. Does that make sense to everybody? But how do we break those patterns, right, of standing in our way? How do we break those patterns, right? And so I want to start off saying it's not easy, but when I do want to tell you that it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter, who you are or your particular situations. To Dr. Lakeba's point, everybody have variables in their situations where, one thing may impact the other. Just like Sister Jones mentioned or whatever, her situation is different. She's not social where she can say, oh, let me lean on a lot of people. So everybody's situation is going to be different. But you got to be able to push past that, and even for a moment to be able to take that time for yourself. And so I want you to think about this question. And if anyone can answer this question for me, it'll be great. So do you think you are being selfish when you put your needs first? Show of hand, anybody feel that way? Sometimes. Anybody want to speak to that, like when you feel that way? Mhm. The people online, yeah, they're online.
Okay, for example, next week, I'm going on a trip that we had scheduled before COVID. And if we don't take this trip, we're gonna lose thousands of dollars.
Okay.
So now I'm like, and a couple of times I did cancel the trip on purpose because I didn't wanna leave my mom. So now it's like, okay, I got to go, but I have help and I know they're gonna be fine, but I still have that guilt, like, should I go, should I stay? So that's the guilt that I have.
Thank you for sharing that. Something to consider when we feel that guilt is this real guilt or false guilt? Because real guilt surfaces when we do something wrong. That's the check in our spirit that now you know you was wrong the way you talked to her. That's real guilt. But if we're not doing something wrong, then that's not real guilt, that's false guilt. It's important for us to be able to ascertain between the two because they both feel the same. And if I find that it's false guilt, I say to myself, that's false guilt. It's not wrong for you to take care of yourself. As a matter of fact, this is something that you've put off in your example until you can't put it off no more. And you've got some support. Mom's gonna be okay. You gotta coach yourself. Coach BJ, I have an inner life coach. She's a baddie. She gets me and she'll say, yeah, you know you got this, you can do it, it's okay. You're not doing nothing wrong. This is not real guilt. And you're going to have to let this go. And it's okay for you to, it's okay. I love the best things we can say to ourselves in those moments is, I love you, it's okay. I love you, it's okay. That's self-care. That doesn't require somebody outside of us to do anything for us. But that's something that when we feel that false guilt, that paralyzes us, makes us feel like we're horrible people. We must tell ourselves the truth. I love you, it's okay. And go on and know that that's false guilt. We're not doing anything wrong. We've made arrangements, and all will be well. God is the umbrella of protection. Let us never forget that. Always. Watching out, looking out, taking care. Always.
Dr. Lakeeba, can I just add something? And I think that false guilt oftentimes is driven by stuff that we can't control. And so we focus on what we can't control and what might happen and what could happen and what if I'm not there and so on and so forth. But even in those cases, sometimes you just got to have faith and say, okay, well, you know what? I can't control it. God is in control. And so I'm just going to give it to God and move in this space. But that false guilt oftentimes in that piece is stuff that we can't control, that stuff that regardless, even if we were here, we couldn't control it.
That's right. My practice of mindfulness and meditation and prayer helps me to deal with the unknowns in life. And I hope you all are practicing or will begin to practice, will pray, whatever works for you. But it helps me to be in the present moment, because if I think thoughts like, what if this happens? What if, like Rev said, what if this takes place? Or what if, any thought that begins with what if is going to lead me to anxiety. I'm going to be anxious. Or Rev, if I'm thinking, if only I had have done this, if only I had have done that, that's going to lead me to depression, because that's in the past and there's nothing I can do about the past. Nothing I can do about what has happened. I don't know what's going to happen. If I'm in the present moment, if I'm practicing the presence, I say to my clients all the time, be where your feet are. Just look down, where your feet at? Be there. Today is August the 13th, 2022. That's it. Tomorrow, I don't know. I'm doing all I can do is all I can do, and that's all I can do. And like Rev said, that false guilt, well, I've made the arrangements, it's all I can do. God is the umbrella of protection. I'm truly just going to trust God. But this right here, I'm going to take care of myself. I got to.
I want to bring up something else that is, another question is very important, because I feel like a lot of caregivers go through this. So does anyone feel that they have to prove that they are worthy of the care for the recipient's affection? And do you do too much as a result of that, trying to win that person's affection? Has anybody experienced that? Anybody go through that?
When I saw that question on the slide, I said, woo, woo. Man, I tell you, when we really sit with it, because there's a child within everybody in here.
That's right.
And wanting to please our parents, I think we're just born with that. Some of us were fortunate enough to know that we, just like we do with God, God is well pleased with us. Even though we be like, well, God, I just want you to be happy with me. God's like, I'm already happy with you, child. You good. Some of us are fortunate enough to have that experience with our earthly parents, that we know that there's nothing that we can do to separate us from their love. But some of us don't. And if we're honest, a lot of what we're doing is striving, still trying to get that worthiness. But that's when you transpose that adult attachment to God. and knowing that there is nothing that can separate us from God's love, that what we're doing is pleasing to God, then whether Daddy has a good day or a bad day, it's okay. To God be the glory.
That's right.
What I'm doing is as unto the Lord, whether there's a thank you so much or a scowl on the face sometimes.
That's right.
Because I've learned that don't really have nothing to do with us. Most of it doesn't have, much of what goes on with other people ain't got nothing to do with us. They dealing with themselves. God loving it if we just back out of that thing and allow them to have their experience. Well, if we're mindful and present in the moment, we're okay with saying to the other person, seem like you're dealing with something, just know I love you and I'm praying for you. You having a day? Because think about it, we're talking about self-care for the caregiver, but thinking about being in a position to have to receive it. Like Rev said, to give up that independence and that autonomy and to humble oneself to receive it and to see the sacrifice.
Well, lifespan and development, right? Once a man, twice a child. A lot of times, our elders or whoever we're giving care to is fighting for autonomy because that's been stripped from them. I think about it with toddlers and children who are younger. All of those temper tantrums and those scowls and throwing the food and slapping the food comes from fighting for autonomy and not knowing what to do because I can't take care of myself. I know that you do. I know that you have to. Imagine being the child twice over, right? And so understanding that I don't have to take that personally. Playing that over in my head once again, empathizing, right? Trying our best to replace some of those feelings of frustration. Well, I don't have to meet you there. What I can do is empathize with you as much as possible to try to understand where you're at so that I don't have to take it personally. Not because you're justified, but so that I don't have to take it personally.
You mean I don't have to match energy?
You don't have to match energy,
That's
no.
the worst thing I think we come up with as a culture. I'm going to match your energy. I'm like, well, why
It's
in
a
the world would
choice.
you do that? What energy do we want to have as caregivers and people that love and care about other people? We want to be gracious, want to be kind, patient.
I want to touch on this in this segment is about the misconceptions that caregivers have about what increase their stress levels. I really want to move into that, and some of the most commonly expressed ones is, I am responsible for my parents' health. That's an automatic thing you take on. If I don't do it, no one else will. It's another expression, right? If I do it right, I will get the love, attention, and respect I deserve. And typically, if it's a parent, it's the respect of your siblings, it's the respect of other people in the family to let them know that I'm doing something, right? I want to be respected because I've never been respected in the family. So if I do this one task, then I'm gonna be respected. Our family always takes care of their own. That's something that was seeded and planted in a lot of families in our culture years to come, right? Family always take care of their own. So we take on that same thing. And then another one is, I promised my father I would always take care of my mother. Those dying wishes for people that they hold on to, right? And don't realize the accountability of what they've taken on, whether it was personally, whether it was embedded from family values or whatever that might be, cause a heightened sense of stress when you are a caregiver, right? And so in my coaching practice, I call these ants. So these are like automatic negative thoughts, right? That we need to really shift and figure out how to shift that mindset. And so instead of saying that I never do anything right, focus on what you are doing right. Let's focus on those things. Or another thing is just like, instead of, the positive statements you can make is that, I am good at giving my mother a bath versus I'm not. Again, or how can I? Right? Let's change our initial terminologies. How can I? Who can help me? I can do this. I am doing a great job. Those are positive affirmations that you're speaking into yourself, right? To keep your mind right and to keep yourself positive and energized and alive with what you're doing, because it keeps a certain momentum. But the more you talk the negative, it drains your energy. It brings on the negative thoughts. It brings on the stress. It brings on the depression, right? So we want to begin to be able to have those positive outlook and how can I, and I am doing a great job, and focus on what is going well, right? Because if I was to ask you, who is getting on your nerves? Honey, let me tell you, we have a laundry list of what's going bad. But if I say, tell me what's been going well, and this is what I do with my clients, I say, tell me what's been going well for you over the last week. And they have a pause. Because we're always so focused on the negative and what's not going well. It is so hard for us. And that is really a thing for my clients. That's really a thing for them, is that now they have to actually focus on, I got to focus on what's going well, because I know Coach BJ in our session next week, she's going to ask me what's going well. So now they try to stage something that's going well because it's not innate in them. But what I try to do is establish a pattern, a positive habit change in them to say, focus on what's going well, right? And not let's focus on what's not going well. So I just wanted to bring those misconceptions that we often think and how to be able to turn that around.
So we need to
Powerful.
match the positive energy.
Match the positive energy.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what we need to do.
And we can.
And we can.
Yeah.
What are you all doing well in your caregiving? Can we offer that to you guys? What are you doing well? Anybody want to share?
So my grandmother, she's 94 years old, and that's my mom's mom.
Okay.
And so she's back at home now. We're all taking care of her. And I've mastered the morning routine, getting up, changing her. She can't walk. She's not mobile. I'm able to change her, get that done within 5 minutes now. So I was just like, Mom, that's a new record. I can do that before work. On Thursday, I got her in the bed by herself without my parents. They were completely gone from the house. I was able to change her, get her on the pot, get her back in the bed. We ordered all this stuff from Amazon to help us like move her, and we have this little sheet, and I was able to put her on the sheet, stand up on the bed, move her by myself, and get her up in the bed. So I'm personally doing a good job.
All right now. I love
I know
that.
that's right.
I love that.
Something else just came up for me that I didn't even prepare to say, but it's something that I say to my clients. Whenever you have a win, celebrate your wins. Even if it's just, I'm going to go buy myself my favorite piece of candy, or I'm going to take myself out to dinner. Man, I did that. Celebrate every individual win. It don't always have to be the big applause. I got my degree, or I got married, or I had a child. It don't have to be the big celebration. Celebrate the small wins. Celebrate the small things in life, and you're going to find that energy of, oh, I'm going to continue to do that, because it feels great to celebrate yourself and not having to wait years and time for some big grand event when you can celebrate the small things. Man, we did this in record time. Let's see if we can do it next week. You know, get that motivation. Get everybody else involved. You know, great thing.
I have something.
That coaching coming out.
I have someone on Zoom that wanted to say something. Sister Thatcher.
It's not relevant now. I'll keep listening, and if I need to say something, I'll let you know.
We got it. We got you. We heard you. Thanks.
So in our toolbox, we've recognized false guilt from real guilt. We've also recognized that when we're caregiving the recipient, we are not going to match their energy. We're going to have positive energy. We're going to have positive thoughts about it. Sometimes the positive thought is, I showed up. I'm here. I done came in this room and I'm doing it again. And with the grace that God gives, I'm going to do it. God's going to give me the grace to do it. But those are two tools that we have in our toolbox now. Let's keep going.
Okay, so I am going to talk about moving forward, and I'm excited about this. So once you've started to identify any personal barriers, Coach BJ did such a good job talking about that, so I do want to tell you that. To good self-care, you can begin to change your behavior. My colleagues know that this is my favorite part. I love to go inside of myself and encourage my clients to go inside of myself to work with what I've got, because sometimes everybody can't help me, and so I've got to figure out what I can do. So moving forward one small step at a time, like you were talking about those small wins, Following are some effective tools for self-care that you can start. So the first one is reducing personal stress. So we will get into that. So personal stress, what comes up for you guys when you think about your own personal stressors? Anybody want to share? So
Money,
you go
when
ahead.
your money get
Yeah,
funny.
money. Absolutely.
Money, when your money get funny, that's stressful.
That's extremely stressful. So money is one thing. A lot of times it's just boundaries, lack of boundaries, right? People's access to you. So when you think about those kids or that are knocking on your window or your door, or your friends that keep calling, your grandchildren that call, your sister, your brother that need your advice, that may need some money, setting some of those boundaries, putting some of those boundaries in place to eliminate your own personal stress. So these are things, tangible things that we can control, that we can put our hands on to change, that we can set aside so that we can increase the quality of our life. So how?
Okay, I'm gonna say one other personal, or can be a personal stress, is Dr. Lakiba spoke to it kind of a minute ago, but the very person that you're giving care may be a part of your stress, and learning to, and really kind of going back to what Dr. Lakiba just said, just notion of, I can only control how I feel right now.
That's right.
And really having a sense of empathy for the person that you're giving care for, and what they're going through, and how they might be feeling, and really understanding this really ain't about me. This ain't about I didn't cook the food good enough, or I didn't make the bed, or why I'm so, a lot of it is, but some of the time, the very person, that child, that aging parent, that sick, all of that could be, they could be a part of your stress, and some of the time, kind of you just need time. You need a timeout.
You hit the nail on the head. The stress that you feel is not only a result of your caregiving situation, but also a result of your perception of it. And so we want to encourage you guys that you can control your perception of your reality, right? How you see what's going on. So your level of stress is influenced by many factors. So the first factor is whether your caregiving is voluntary. For some of us, it's not, right? Some of us don't have free time. Kind of, Rev, you were talking about it earlier. You had a whole life, a lot going on, and it wasn't a choice that you felt like you had to make, but it was mandated in your spirit. Additionally, if you feel like you have no choice in taking on the responsibilities, the chances are greater that you will experience strain. Sometimes it's okay to just recognize that, right? Sometimes it's okay to just realize this is not an optimal situation for me. This is not somewhere where I saw myself. This is not how I saw things going or how I wanted it to be. Being in reality is the first step to acceptance. If you're not in reality, you're operating off of, a lie, right? This is okay, it's okay, so it's okay to say it's not okay. Number two, your relationships with the care recipient. Some of us had a great relationship, like you talked about, Dr. Lakiba and Coach BJ, if we are caring for our parents. Some of us did not, or our child. Some of us are caregivers to our child or our family members. The relationship hasn't always been that great, right? If healing does not occur, you may feel regret and discouragement. Number three, your coping ability. So not to mention the situation that you're in, but what you were working with before you even got put in that situation, right? How you coped with stress in the past predicts how you will cope now, kind of how Coach BJ was talking about. Identify your current coping strengths so that you can build on them. We're talking about moving forward, so identifying where we're at, and maybe what we've been doing, and saying what hasn't worked for us, putting that on the forefront and kind of moving some of those cards so we can figure out a way that we can make it work for us. I'm really big, we're all big on increasing the quality of your life. And a lot of that doesn't come from external circumstances. It's what you choose to do kind of with what you've got. And the fourth is your caregiving situation. Some caregivers or some situations are more stressful than others. For example, caring for a person with dementia is often more stressful than caring for someone with a physical limitation. Can anybody attest to that? Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be a very, very long, convoluted story, but the short version is sometimes I blame me for not seeing what I didn't know until, you know, we end up in situations where you have no choice. I've been to the ER more times than I can count because either she decided to do something that in my whole you can't change the past guilt holding on to version, why didn't I see that sooner? So I could have made the steps that may or may not have prevented the level of degree that it was. So that's one thing I'm working on. Today is better than yesterday, but today is still hard. 2 weeks ago, well, mid-July, we ended up in the ER again. So for 2 weeks, I had to sit with her until we could get her to a full assisted or full 24/7 care. So I'm trying to work where she is, take care of her, and then, of course, my household is basically running on its own. So it's just a lot of stress that if you don't stop and to identify, it just spirals. So we're trying to come out of the spiral. I did actually make my doctor's appointments.
Good.
Clap.
And the last one was on Thursday, and she basically said, you have spent 10 minutes talking about your mother. We have yet to get to you. We have got to get you back to you. Yeah. So this is actually part of her doctor's orders. Good. I have to take active steps to take better care of me. Good. Those are the rules. Yeah. So. Good.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much just for the panel and for all your 5-minute routine. That's because I am not there yet. I suit up. It takes me longer than that to suit up and put my back strap on to try to keep myself together. Just the young lady who just spoke, that spiraling, I think the word she used, took me to the hospital. So that's why I know what I felt, that I had to just sit there and look at my mother. I slept on the couch. I would not go to the bedroom, and I ended up in the hospital, you know, right in the height of COVID. But they immediately knew it wasn't that and sent me home because they needed the beds for what they said, the real sick people. And of course, I didn't know whether to be offended or grateful. I decided I was grateful, and I had to do better. I had to go. Dentist, doctor, gastro, heart monitor, they had me on all, I did it all. And they found little to nothing. So it had to be that I wasn't doing what I needed to do for major self-care. Major self-care. That's what it amounted to. Not only that, I had to be more active in sharing what I learned. That's important. The caregiving group probably helps me more than I help them, but I get so much from it. We have to do it. It is not optional, or else poor self-care is going to, the care that you give to the person you're caring for is going to be substandard. It will end up being substandard. When I found out about a back brace to save my back, I feel so much better. Now, maybe I can't get it down to 5, but I'm going to go for 15. I'm going for it. I am so very, very serious. I guess I'm holding a whole lot in for all the commentary, the guilt feelings and all of that, because I am not a cook. And when my mother stopped eating, I thought it was because my food was so terrible. I hid her medicine in applesauce and ice cream and all the things that I thought she would eat. She ultimately ended up on a feeding tube, but that really could have saved her life while I'm trying to feel guilty about it. She stopped eating because she was sepsis. She is still with us. I am grateful, but I had to let go of that. I don't cook well enough, and oh my gosh, if I don't cook well enough, she's not going to eat. That's probably why she isn't. But it had nothing to do with that. I still don't cook well, but it had nothing to do with that. It was something totally different, but I didn't know. So as far as the learning piece, there is so much out here to know. I can't stress it enough, and I'm going to talk about it till somebody says, shut up. That's the truth.
Where is your caregiver group?
It is virtual. Okay. It's called Grateful for Grace, because my mother's name is Grace, but I am so glad that God's grace has gotten me through every step. She is on hospice. November will be 6 years. She is still with us. So I praise God for it. And right now, I get out, I go, I thank Tanya. Tanya, raise your hand for telling me to come over here.
Hey, Tanya.
Because she knows I'm on a mission. I'm going to talk about it until the legislation gets better. They're starting, but they're not there yet. It's still not enough. And we have got to advocate for us because there are too many of us.
That's what Rev was saying earlier.
Yes.
Just resources, money's not being put into it, and we're suffering. But that's what today is about. We have to move from surviving to thriving.
Yes.
And you're an example of that. It is possible.
Yes.
We can move forward. How do we get to Grateful for Grace group? Is there a website, or how do people connect with that?
404.
Okay. Phone number.
That's right.
35. That's the best way.
Okay.
Because then the information will come straight to you. 404. 354-3224. My name is Donna. Right. And I go by Dr. Olivia, but my name is Donna Olivia. That is the name my mama gave me, so that's what I call myself.
Thank you.
And my stress point, and I'll give the number again, is the fact that my mother does not know me. That is very difficult for me, but I am even pushing through that. I prayed that she would call my name one more time, and on April 19th of this year, she did. I am praising God all the way through this process, yes. 404-354-3224. Just say you were at this particular seminar, and you can just jump online. It's free. We do it every third Monday. Thank you.
Every third Monday. Thank you, Doc. Appreciate
that. Thank you for your testimony.
Anybody on Zoom? Yeah. Hello? We can hear you. We can hear you.
Where they can maybe become over demanding, have entitlement spirit, and they're putting all this stress on the person, who's taking care of them. So is there any type of counseling for the person being taken care of? Of what they're doing to the person who's taking care of them.
So did you all hear that? So the question is there any type of counseling for the person who is receiving care, or anything that can be done for them. And he kind of mentioned kind of this, sometimes people have an entitlement, and they're, and they're moving in their space and trying to deal with what is going on with them. But can you recommend anything that is for the caregiver? I mean, not the caregiver, but the care receiver.
Okay. That falls under the umbrella of individual counseling. And, seeing a counselor, you can go to Psychology Today and read the profiles of people that deal with medical issues. Okay, because there's a CPT code that you can bill for that, in addition to other things that'll have that covered by insurance. Whatever your insurance provider is, you can go to Psychology Today, put in your city, state, and look for your insurance and make sure that it's covered, whatever your plan is. And if you don't have medical insurance, you can look for sliding scale fees, people that offer sliding scale fees. But that falls under the umbrella of individual counseling. And I have some clients that over time have come to me because their health has changed, their situation has changed, and they've wanted to figure out how to better deal with that themselves and how to continue to show up and be in relationship with people. So excellent question.
And I would add to that, also when they go to see their doctor.
Absolutely.
Asking the physician,
yes,
is there, can you give a referral?
Absolutely.
For
in network.
In
the
network,
insurance.
with insurance, for them to see a person. If they do it, that's up to them. But hopefully, they'll take they'll take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Because the physical affects the psychological and the spiritual. We are a total person. And you need ministry to the whole person when you're going through challenges. We all do. So that's an excellent question. That referral from the doctor, that initiative, just taking that initiative in Psychology Today and looking for a provider, reading those profiles and looking at the person and seeing what they're talking about. Can they help me? Are they a good match? Calling and having a consultation with the person. But whether they're willing or not to reach out is going to be up to that person, because that's one of the challenges for providing care to an adult, is they have the right to say, no, I don't want to do that. But that still, like Lauren said so eloquently earlier, doesn't stop us from going and getting the help that we need to get for ourselves, whether it's a sliding scale fee or whatever the case may be. Is help out there. We just have to get connected with it. And Doc, I appreciate you offering your group, because that's some of the resources that we have at the end of the slideshow. But thank you so much. That's another resource, real time.
And for those who are interested in seeking services, the verbiage would be just to call and ask straight off the bat. I have people call me and say, hey, do you accept sliding scale? Before we even get into this conversation, to cut down on some of those long conversations. That's what you would ask any provider. Some do, some don't.
What does that mean, sliding scale? What does that mean?
Reduce cost. So whatever, so let's say, you're talking to a therapist and their cost for individual psychotherapy is $100. Some physicians or some therapists, some coaches offer sliding scale fees 50% off of that, $50. It's a part of their own pro bono work or whatever they do for the year. They have 3 slots a year that they might do. And so you might be able to be one of those slots. And some of it, it's even less than $50, 45, 40, 20, 25, 35.
Don't count yourself out.
Yeah,
Sometimes
just
I think,
advocate.
yeah.
And you can even tell them what you're working with, what you got in your pocket. And it's up to them to say yes or no. We all know God works in mysterious ways, so you never know. You may talk to somebody who's like, I can do that. I may have to push you out for 2 weeks, but I can do that. It may be in their heart to offer that service. So that's just some tangible way to reach out to some of those mental health providers and advocate for yourself.
Deacon Gallen, did you have something you wanted to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that when I was going through all my medical uh, disadvantages last year, I was going back for my doctor for my routine checkup, and she said, "Miss Gallen, are you having any depressions?" I said, "No, doc, not having any depressions." I said, "But you know, sometimes you get low, but you don't stay down there, okay?" So that's the way I am. I go down sometimes, but I come back up. And I was saying it jokingly, you know, yeah, we all get low sometime, right? We may not, you know, we may not stay down there, but there are things that causes us to go down. You know, things don't work in our favor, we go down. Okay, when it gets better, we come back up. So that's what that's what I explained to her there, what's going on with me. I said, I don't get depressed, I just go down sometimes. I had another name for it, all right?
The name.
Sad, blue, you know, just whatever.
I said, I don't want you to put on my chart that I'm crazy, okay? I just get down sometimes.
Well,
I never admit to being crazy or depressed. I'm just get down sometimes.
well, and that's the thing that all of us, it's on a continuum. And it's something that's why we're here, to make it more normal to feel down, sad, depressed. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It means you don't feel, I say to my clients, I say, what would make you feel more like yourself? That just means you're not feeling like yourself. And so what's it gonna take to get you back to you? And then we do what we need to do to get you there. Or you do what you need to do in concert with the help that you get to get you there. But yeah, it doesn't mean we're crazy. It just means we're going through it. That's real life.
Okay, so in that same vein on learning to manage your stress, here are some steps. Tangible, I like to say tangible because we like to have direct ways that we can get certain things accomplished and not just talk about it like butterflies and rainbows. So number one, recognize warning signs early. These might include irritability, sleep problems, forgetfulness. Sometimes means you're moving too fast or you're not focusing on yourself. Know your own warning signs. Everybody's warning signs look different. And act to make changes. I'm going to say that part again. Act to make changes. Don't wait until you're overwhelmed, like Coach BJ said, and then you're running, right? So number two, identify sources of stress. Ask yourself, what is causing stress for me? Sometimes it's good to just sit with yourself when you start to feel these identifiable feelings. And I like to say, just have a conversation with yourself. What's going on? What's going on? You know, it almost sounds like I'm talking to my daughter. What's going on? But use that same tone with yourself. Sometimes that'll elicit some emotion and you'll be able to say exactly what it is, right? You just be kind to yourself. What's going on? Source of stress might be that you have too much to do, family disagreements, especially when it comes to caregiving. Everybody doesn't agree on how to take care of our beloved one. So that's also a source of stress. Feelings of inadequacy that Coach BJ talked about and Dr. Lakiba, or the inability to say no. The inability to say no. If you learn how to say no, you'll learn how to manage your stress. Additionally, number three, identify what you can and cannot change. I love this one. There's some things we can't change. Some things aren't going to change. I did the lottery for the first time and I didn't win, and that's not going to change, right?
when did you do it? When the big
The
jackpot?
last one, what was it called? The Powerball. I'm from Alabama, so what was it called?
She did the
Mega Ball.
The mega
yeah,
million.
I didn't get it. Mega Million. Anyways, so identify what you cannot change. Remember, we can only change. Remember, we can only change ourselves. We can only change ourselves. We cannot control what other people do. We cannot change another person. When you try to change things over which you can't have no control, you will only increase your sense of frustration. When you try to change things that you cannot control, you will only increase your frustration. Being in the present moment, like Dr. Lakiba said, just saying, where are my feet? I think I didn't remember your name in the purple right there. You talked about how you were fighting against what you should have done, and you learned or you're learning to kind of cut that out. That's something tangible that we can cut out, right? Because we can't go back to change those things. That's only adding to our frustration, to our sadness, to our low feelings, right? To our depression. And so if we kind of cut that out and say, no, I'm here today. What can I do with today? We're decreasing some of that stress. Even a small change can make a big difference. The challenge we face as caregivers is well expressed in the following words, modified from the original Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Know the difference between what I can't change, what I perceive that just is. Maybe that's not true. Maybe there's initiative that I can take personally that might be uncomfortable, might be new, but that I can take that initiative to increase the quality of my life, right? And sometimes being open to changing some of those things that we might not have been open to changing before. Praying for that. And number 4, take action. Taking some action to reduce stress, kind of just what we talked about, gives us back a sense of control. We don't feel like we're in a whirlwind. That's my favorite part. I know Coach BJ, being a life coach, she can attest to that. Once you actually put your hand on those things that were really hard to build up the courage to do, once you see that, you start to get that sense of control back. Like, I can control, I have some control about the way that I feel, the quality of my life, the level of happiness that I can have. Stress reducers can be simple activities like walking. There's scientific evidence to that. Some of my clients are like, that don't make me feel better. I'm like, yes, it does, and I'll show them the studies. In other forms of exercise, so even, yoga at home, whatever you like to do. I did a kickboxing class the other day, and everybody that was in the class was, I'd say, probably double my age or maybe even 3 times my age, kicking my butt, helping me, like, here's this weight. Maybe don't go so high next time. Use this one. This is how I started. And so doing all those sorts of things can help you. Gardening. Does anybody garden in here? Me too. I just started. Oh, so we've got to talk about that. Gardening is a great, it helps me whenever I need a second just to clear my mind. And it reminds me that there's so many things that are bigger than what I've got going on in the moment. So meditation or having coffee with a friend. Identify some stress reducers that work for you personally. What works for me, Dr. Lakeeb and Coach BJ, it may not work for everybody sitting out there. So we all know what we like and what makes us happy and what kind of gives us that airy feeling. So just getting back to some of those things. And maybe even trying some new things, right, that we don't know that we like. There's always room to grow. We always want to be in that exploration stage of our life. And so maybe putting ourselves out there in that way, we find out that there are things out there that we didn't know that we would like, but that we end up loving and make us happy. So,
excellent job. Yeah, thank you so much. Go ahead, Deacon.
One other point that came to my mind as the lady was talking back there about her mother. She wished her mother would say her name. I had a friend. His wife had dementia, and she passed. And he shared a lot of things with me, and he said the hardest part that he had to deal with was when he would go into his wife's room, and she would call him by another man's name. And he said that really hurt him.
That's why I appreciate you sharing that. When it's really difficult to be a caregiver with someone that has cognitive deficiencies, because there is a sense of disconnectedness from the lived experience, and that has nothing to do with him. It's just the virtue of the disease and how it attacks the brain. And so we say to people all the time, make sure that you're taking care of yourself so that when those triggers happen, because I'm imagining that would be triggering for anyone, that there becomes this sense of empathy, like Rev said, of, you know what? Oh, in the words of Jesus, forgive them because they know not what they do. A lot of times we just have to move in that space of forgiveness. The disease or the illness is going to do what it does. We're in this physical body, but we're having a spiritual experience. And so that is what helps us to make it through, even when we're dealing with those types of challenges. We also need to, let's go back to the PowerPoint. We want to set some goals.
To set goals, right? Help set goals, okay? So one of the things I like to do, I mean, because when everybody talk about goal setting, they just think of it generally. So I like to give my clients a different focus when I talk about goal setting. So this is the definition that I give them. A goal is an established point for achievement that leads to a greater accomplishment. You know, so a lot of people just focus on, okay, I want a goal and I want to reach it. But whatever that goal is, it typically allows you or give you the mindset, I want to even reach higher heights. So like you get your high school diploma and then it's like, I'll get my bachelor's. Okay, I'm gonna get my master's. Okay, I'm gonna get my doctorate. So all these different achievements, for example, is leading to greater accomplishments, right? And a goal is also a point of measure for progress toward an ultimate purpose. So you have these in-betweens that's there, right? Trying to get as you're working on the goal. And so one of the things that goals do for us is that it gives us structure for accomplishing our plans one step at a time. And they give us a starting place and an ending place. So what you do in between those times is the little task. What are the little tasks you're going to implement and incorporate to get you to the end goal? Because it's not about, oh, I want to graduate and do this, but what are you going to do in the meantime? Or I want this promotion. So in light of you wanting that promotion on your job, what are the little tasks you're going to do in between the meantime, whether that's maybe picking up another skill or honing your current skills to get you to where you want to be? So what are those little projects or those little tasks you do in between, small sizes to get you there? And it's also set up for you not to be overwhelmed in the process. And so from self-care perspective, what are those things, what are the goals you're trying to achieve for yourself in self-care to say, you know what, I'm gonna do this today, right? Dr. Lakeeba said, all I have is today, right? And so the young lady mentioned that, okay, it took X amount of time before to be able to get the grandmother dress. Okay, but I'm gonna challenge myself to see, how can I do this in 5 minutes? You know, so what am I gonna do that? Okay, I'm gonna plan to try it a different way this morning. That didn't work. Okay, let me put another task in place. The ultimate goal is to get it done faster or whatever that goal is, right? So just using that for an example. So you want to be able to think about 3 to 6 months, what type of self-care you want to, or what goals you want to set from a self-care space that you want to implement for yourself, right? And so one of the things that we spoke of earlier is taking a break from caregiving, right? Whether that's, I think someone on the panel mentioned, having someone to come sit with that loved one while you just go take a walk, right? Get help with bathing and preparing meals. There's, you know, people here at Mount Welcome who love to cook, who love the whatever. Can you bring my loved one a meal today while you're cooking? You know, reach out and tap into the resources. You know, I think oftentimes, again, we feel like, oh, well, I don't want so-and-so to think that I can't take care of, you know, this person or whatever the case may be. There are so many people that love to do what they do. All they just want you to do is just say, they just want you to ask them for help. Right? But a lot of times we get into our own mindset about what the other person is thinking or what they might be thinking that we prevent ourselves from the blessing, right? And so that's just one way to look at it. And of course, you know, as we stated earlier, everybody's circumstances are different. But until you ask, you don't know who is willing to reach out a helping hand to help you with that, right? And so one of the things I want to say about goals for actually 5 points that I want you guys to consider and think about as it relates to goals. So one thing about goals is that they separate achievers from dreamers. You can dream all day about the life you want. You can dream all day that you want this person to get better. You can dream, but the thing is what separates them is the goals that they put in place to achieve the goals that they're trying to achieve. That's one, okay? The second thing is goal setting is the art of discipline. Goal setting is the art of discipline. And what comes out of the word discipline? Disciple. You have to be a disciple over your goals, right? We say we want to be a disciple and follow Jesus, but how often are we being disciples and good stewards over what we're trying to achieve in our own personal lives? Self-care is so important. Goals give specifics to the plan. A lot of times we may say, I want to lose, 100 pounds. Okay, that's great. You didn't put the goal out there, but what else is there? What else is there? So the goals and the small things you put in place helps you get to the goal line, the finish line, right? What are those things you're gonna do in between? So I'm gonna make it up. If you're trying to lose 100 pounds by when? Put specifics to the plan. Okay, I wanna lose 100 pounds in a year. Okay, great. So now you gotta go, okay, now you've established a time frame. Okay, now what's the next step? So I need to maybe work on changing my eating habits. Maybe taking out fried foods. Small tasks. Let me sear my fish versus fry it, right? Do it one step, whatever it's gonna do to take you get there, small bits at a time. Again, set a plan for the goal that you're trying to achieve. Goals also create targets for our energy, right? So we get energized, like the young lady mentioned, whether, oh, we can do it in this time frame. Oh, let me do it again, right? Let me challenge myself to do more. It gives you the energy and it inspires you to say, if I did it this way, I'm sure I can figure out another way to even make it even easier, right? It gives you energy and the goals that you try to set for yourself. And then the last thing, and probably one of the most important things I can say about goals, is that goals protect us from procrastination. Goals truly protect us from procrastination, because when you have something in place, there's no reason to procrastinate, because you have already done a preventive maintenance and set the plan up before in order to achieve what you're trying to achieve. So that's what I want to say about goal setting.
You know, I sit between these two powerhouses, and I feel like I'm so blessed. Like, just sharing what you just shared, we're talking about taking care of ourselves, and just this idea that it's okay that we haven't been doing it. Today isn't about blaming or shaming anybody. It's about creating a curiosity for all of us regarding, well, how will that look like for me today? If I just started today, what would that look like? And if that is cultivated in you today, then to God be the glory. We have accomplished the purpose to which we set out. Excellent job on that section. We're going to go to the next part of that slide, and we're going to talk about seeking some solutions. In order to seek solutions when we're caregivers and we're tasked with, okay, well, how are we going to make this better? How are we going to deal with this transportation issue? We got to identify the problem first. List possible solutions for whatever that problem is, and then select one solution and then try it. The pros and the cons, the process of elimination, we don't know until we try it. And if it doesn't work well, we can change it. I say to people all the time, you have the right to change your mind. You have the right. If it's not working, evaluate the results. Try a second solution. You'll often get to where you need to get. But doing the same thing is just going to give you what? The same results. So be open to seeking solutions. The next tool that we want to offer is communicate constructively. And we encourage you to use I statements when you communicate. You always do this. You never do this. If you're speaking to another person, that automatically puts the person in the defense mode. But when you and I are the sender of a message and we use I statements, I don't care who we're talking to. I don't care if we're talking to our loved one's physician. If we take that position of, I've watched Daddy and he seems to not be tolerating the medication well. Because physicians can be very decidedly about the course of action that they're taking. But if we take that stance of, I've watched, I'm here all the time, it's such a humble place to stand. They're more likely to listen to you if you take that position. Or you've been prescribing this medicine and it sure ain't working, and I'm just tired, this is not working. Well, that's just going to create an ego issue, and that's not what we want when we're caregivers. So the benefit of those I statements, I can't speak to that enough. Also, respect the feelings of others. I say to people all the time, if I'm sending a message, I'm going to respect myself. I'm going to show up for myself and I'm going to say what I got to say. But I'm mindful of the receiver and how they may receive it. So I'm going to respect them too. So when we're speaking to the person that we're giving care to, the caregiver recipient, let's be mindful of that. I'm going to send this message and I'm going to say what it is that I got to say, but I also want to make sure that I'm saying it in a way that it's I'm mindful of the person that I'm sending it to. Now, I'm going to say this and I'm going to mean this. When Georgia Power put that power bill in my mailbox, they don't come by to make sure I got it. The mail person leaves it in there and they leave. If I don't go out there and get that mail out that mailbox and pay that power bill, what's going to happen to it? They're going to cut it off. So when you send your message, you've used your I statements. You've respected the person that you've sent it to. You're not responsible for how they receive it. If they don't receive it the way that you sent it, you can just say that. It sounds like you're receiving that message differently from the way that I intended. We're giving you the language to communicate effectively. Because when we communicate constructively, that's also a part of our role as a caregiver.
Dr. Lakeith, can I speak to that too? Also, like, if you're giving care to your parent, it's always remembering that there is a dynamic in that relationship. Yeah. So now, to a certain extent, the dynamic has shifted. Yeah. And so how you speak to them makes them feel now, wait, but you still my child. Yeah, that's good. And you talking to me like, you know, and so it can create even more dis-ease in the relationship. And so kind of speaking to what you just said, being cognizant of who you're speaking to. And so if you're giving care to your parent, always trying to remember, this is my mother or this is my father, and I have to speak to them like I am their child. I'm their caregiver, but I'm also their child. And so that they never feel, really, in a sense, diminished. Because they're struggling with this now, because the reality is, really, you know, parents hope that their children will take care of them, but the reality is no parent really wants their children to have to take care of them. And so I just wanted to.
Excellent point. We are adults, but you're an adult child. And so it's such a tightrope, isn't it? You want to show up as both. Fully as an adult, but also as a child. With that, I'm respecting the position. There's an honor that we give there. So thank you, Rev, for offering that.
To that point, children have something that adults don't necessarily possess. And it was, I think God was so masterful constructing this. Children are able to love unconditionally. Even children who are being abused, mistreated, they're able to love unconditionally. So when you talk about that childlike kind of approach to caring about your parent, they don't see them as, you know, someone who's hurt their feelings. They see them as their parent or whoever's giving care to them. So trying to keep that in your mind if you are a person who's taking care of your parent, having that unconditional love, even when they might not show up in a way that's conducive for you, or it could be hurtful, some cases disrespectful, but just kind of tapping into that love for your parent, that unconditional love. That kind of gets switched off because we grow older and we experience certain things and we learn to protect ourselves, but that came up for me.
That's good. That's good. Excellent point. Thank you both for reminding us to keep the main thing the main thing. And the last part about communication is to be a good listener, because listening is the most important part of communication. If you don't hear anything that I said today, I want us all to remember that. If we're truly having a communication, a sharing, exchanging of ideas, listening is the most important part. The next tool we want to offer is asking and accepting help. And maybe for some of us in here, we're saying, well, you just don't know my story. Nobody's helping me. The other part of it, and that's real, but the other part of it is an accepting help when it comes. I say to people all the time, celebrate love where you find it. It may come from the most auspicious place that you can find it. You may never know. Somebody may call you and, how you doing? How your mama doing? That's help. It may not come in the form that you think you need it, but it's what's sent and what's coming. So we want to expand your thought about that. Still ask for help. If you're saying it's not there, accept it when it comes, because it may come in forms that you never even thought it would come in. Our time is whittling down, and we want to offer opportunity for folks to ask questions if they have them. Talking to the physician, we talked about that already. Starting to exercise, we want to encourage, Lauren talked about the movement. Yeah, we want to encourage all of us to move. The last one is to learn from our emotions. Elder abuse is a real phenomenon. Can I get an amen on that? It happens. And child abuse is a real phenomenon. In any dynamic where there's a power differential that Rev was speaking to earlier, where one person has more power than the other person, there is the potential for abuse. And so we want to be mindful of our emotions when we're in the role of caregiver. And so if we have reached our wits' end, it really is okay to take a break, to step away. It's not disrespectful. It's not unkind. It is the best thing that we can do. I'll give you an example. When I was a young girl, my big mama was, her legs were amputated. And so she had a hospital bed in the front room, and I, living there, grew up there, was tasked with sitting with her sometimes. And there would be times that my grandmother, Big Mama is my great-grandmother, my grandmother, Madia, would get overwhelmed as a caregiver. And I would notice that. Just by, I've always been an intuitive person. And so I would go in there and sit with Big Mama and get up in the hospital bed. And when it was time to change her pan, y'all remember them little metal pans? If you know what I'm talking about, raise your hand. Y'all know what I'm talking about, little metal pans. Slide the person over and you put the pan up under. Now, I weighed a little bit of nothing. But boy, I figured out how to do that. And I would get in there and I'd push Big Mama over so it wouldn't be so much of a task, you know, on my grandmother. And I got pretty good at it. But guess what happened? I would go in there and we just spend time together. I got to know her really well. And the emotions that my grandmother was dealing with, she would get a break. And I'd sit in there with Big Mama, and I tell you, I got me some graham crackers and some beets and some peppermints and some, man, I got it, the gift that we give. And you may not be able to see it today. But when, Rev, I know you can speak to it. When your assignment is done, you'll be able to say, I'm glad I had that time. And so we want to encourage you. Sister, when you said it's hard, yeah, those hard days. There will come a time, like I reflect on, that Big Mama's not here, but I can reflect on that time, and man, that was precious. Be mindful of your emotions and where you are. And when you are out of your window of tolerance, either widen that window through some meditation and some breaths and some prayer, or step out and take you a few minutes to get yourself together. That mitigates the opportunity for mistreating our loved ones. Yeah. Sick, having a stroke in that moment because that stress hits and we're not listening to the body, or whatever the case may be. We can always step away and just figure out, I really need to take a break because it's a little bit too hot right now. Next slide.
I just wanted to share that I know that that's not easy to say or hear. Bye, Amber. Y'all, that's my line sister and her mama. They came. Bye. Yeah. Bye. Yeah. But just I know that's not easy to say. Those aren't things that you want to hear, but it's real. I mean, it's the reality of the situation whenever you're giving care to someone else. So just speaking to kind of taking that personal responsibility to make sure that you check yourself, right? Even in those hard situations, so.
Next slide. We're going to go to the next slide. And then we want to give opportunity for you all to ask questions, and then we're going to do that meditation. Summing it up. Lauren, you're going to sum it up for us? That's okay.
All right, so summing it up, remember it is not selfish to focus on your own needs and desires when you are a caregiver. It is an important part of your job. So it's not a luxury, it's a part of your job that you have to do. You are responsible for your own self-care. Focus on the following self-care practices. So learn and use stress reduction techniques like meditation, prayer, yoga, and Tai Chi. Attend to your own healthcare needs. Get proper rest and nutrition. Exercise regularly, even if only for 10 minutes at a time. Take time off without feeling guilty. Participate in pleasant, nurturing activities such as reading a good book, like you talked about, or taking a warm bath or gardening. Seek and accept the support of others, like Coach BJ has talked about. Seek supportive counsel when you need it, or talk to a trusted counselor or friend, or even our pastor and some of the other pastors and ministers here. Identify and acknowledge your feelings. You have a right to all of them. I kind of talked about that.
Say that again.
Identify and acknowledge your feelings. You have a right to all of them. So even the unpleasant feelings, the feelings that you feel like might not be accepted. So even the things that you say in your heart that, ooh, that didn't feel good, that's okay. It's better to acknowledge it than hold it in and act out of those feelings. So change the negative ways that you view your situation. Coach BJ talked about that. So changing the ways that you see or view your situation is important. And setting goals. Coach BJ also touched on that. So that is summing up our time together for our caregivers.
You all have an awesome assignment. God give you the grace to perform it, to complete it. And we say, well done on this side, but you will hear, well done, good and faithful servant. You will hear it, but we say that to you on this side as well. We're going to do a quick meditation. If you guys are open to that, can you get comfortable in your seat? It's not a long one, but it's just going to be long enough for us to sit here and maybe relax a little bit before you go back into the task that you're faced with today. Go ahead,
and
Renee.
even those at home, wherever you may be.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not driving.
Right.
If you're not driving or operating heavy machinery.
That's right. That's right.
Pull over if you're doing that.
The title of the meditation is Being the Watcher of Your Thoughts.
Hi, I'm John. In the craziness of our lives, it's easy to forget that we are not our thoughts. It feels like it sometimes, though, and we feel as if they're running on, and all we can really do is react to them. Quite the opposite is true. We are not our thoughts. We are the watchers of our thoughts and the watchers of our feelings. What does that mean? It means that thoughts and emotions are going to occur naturally as we go through our day. We always have the opportunity to pause and step back and watch them from a safe distance. And from this safe distance, in the present moment, we have the choice as to how we deal with them. How we allow those thoughts and emotions to affect our lives in this very moment. This choice is the gift. Close your eyes or allow them to gaze gently downward in a neutral state. Ensure your spine is tall and your head is resting gently on your spine. Identify an anchor you can use to help keep you grounded during this session. Something you can return to if you find yourself distracted. Perhaps it's taking slower, deeper breaths than you've taken all day so far. Breathing in slowly and deeply through your nose. Feeling your chest and your stomach expand outward, filling with air. And exhaling everything out through your mouth. Feeling your chest and your stomach contract back in. I invite you to imagine being on a beautiful shoreline with gentle waves coming into shore, and a beautiful sunset in the background. And just as easily as they came in, the waves flow back out. It's a natural, fluid process. There's no resistance to it. As you begin to take notice of your thoughts, see if you can allow them to come and go just as easily as the waves. Not attaching yourself to them, just noticing them, almost as if it was the very first time you experienced them. Allow yourself to just be in this space. Remember that there's nothing you need to do, or figure out, or answer. Just watch with curiosity. As you watch your thoughts come and go, take notice when judgments come up about them. And those judgments may want to tell you a story about them, about the why, how, when, all the details, and how you should feel about them. Let all of that pass by. Float back out gently like the waves. And if it helps, you can silently repeat to yourself, I release you. I don't need you anymore. You are free. Without those judgments and stories, you can allow your thoughts and feelings to be exactly what they are. Temporary. Harness your self-compassion and see how it feels to experience your thoughts in this new way. Continue breathing with your eyes closed. Just allow your attention to begin to drift back to the room you're in. We allow our judgments and stories about the present moment to keep us distracted from being in the present moment. Those judgments and stories are based on our past experiences, so they keep our focus in the past. They blur our perception of what's happening right now in the present moment. When we release the burden of carrying that past with us, our present moment experience gets clearer and richer. We can see the possibilities and perspectives and answers we couldn't see before. We can understand what's really happening in the moment. And instead of reacting, we can use our gift of choice to be compassionate toward ourselves and respond from a true, authentic place. Allow this session to settle into your mind and heart in its natural time, even long after it's done, fostering healing and ease, inspiring you to see and hear things in ways you haven't before. Now let's take 3 more deep breaths together. Inhaling deeply and pausing at the top of the breath to notice the natural stillness that exists there. And exhaling everything out, finding that still space again at the bottom of your breath. Again, another deep inhale and exhale, feeling that breath weave through every muscle and cell. Last time, your deepest breath yet, sending that oxygen all the way down to the tips of your toes. And as you exhale, feel it circulating all the way back up your body. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thanks for joining me. Till next time.
I feel like I just took a nap. Does anybody else feel like that?
I just took a nap too.
Why is meditation important? It's proven to lower your stress levels, your heart rate, and your nervous system. And if you're a beginner to meditation, I like to kind of equate it to prayer. Do you remember the first time you prayed? I remember I was just looking at my parents kind of doing what they were doing. But the more that I practiced and did it alone, I started to feel the effects of prayer. And then you can mix the two kind of once you get, right, deeper into it. Sometimes in my meditation, I just find myself just saying, yes, Lord, whatever comes to my spirit, right? So that's just for those of you who, even online, it might be new or a bit uncomfortable. The more that you practice it, just the way that you practice prayer, you'll start to feel the benefits. And it's good when you are in high stress situations. And then you can, just how you tap into prayer sometimes, naturally. You can pair that with the breathing techniques that you learn through meditation, even while you pray, to help you through those high stress situations while you're caregiving. You can do it real time, sometimes even while your eyes are open, when you don't have the luxury to sit in a dark room.
It has been our privilege to share with you taking care of yourself. I want to thank these beautiful ladies, Coach BJ, Lauren. You guys are amazing, excellent job as always. Reverend Robinson, thank you again for the opportunity. Thank you, Mount Welcome, for allowing us to present this material. Tamika, thank you so much for holding us down with the media.
Thank you so much.
Always do an excellent job.
Thank you.
And thank you for the books. Lauren, can you hold up the book? Thank you for the book. For folks that are here, there's a book out there for you. I want you to grab that. Rev, I want to give it over to you if folks have questions, but we do want you to close us out in prayer once we're done.
Well, we want to thank each and every one of you for, and let's give them a hand. And we really hope that people take to heart what has been talked about today, and really start your own self-care journey. I think that is truly important. Finding self-care. You know, one of the things that I've learned is really just in my life of trying to pour out to other people, that I have to pour into myself some of the time. And so please just take advantage of that and start with the goals, whether it's 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and gradually moving it up. And so we just thank you all for your time, for your effort in helping us do this. So let us pray. Most gracious and merciful God, Lord, we just thank you, Lord, for this session, Lord. We pray for each person who is here, who is giving care to a loved one, Lord. We ask that you continue to pour into them, Lord. And Lord, just continue to remind them when they need to refill themselves, Lord. Lord, we ask that you just continue to speak to their spirits and just help them move past any feelings that are not what they need to feel. Lord, help them to find this reassurance in you that what they are doing is worthy and welcomed. And Lord, so we just ask that you just speak to spirits, speak to minds, speak to bodies, Lord. Lord, and just show them that you have even prepared them for a time such as this. And Lord, you've given them all that they need. And Lord, where they may feel like they're failing, they're truly succeeding, because the most important thing that they can give is the love that flows out of them. And so, Lord, we just thank you and we love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.